Alright, hello everyone. Um, Today I'm going to try to demonstrate how I did my brain matter on the Nurgle super heavy tank that I did. I again I have no idea how this video is going to turn out. It's pretty much just going to be one take because all I have is my phone. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. So I've got a surface already here. It's got cross hatching. Don't know if you can see that. Cross hatching, it's prepped. This is something that I've only recently started doing, which is silly because I've done art classes like 15-20 years ago, and when you do sculpture and you join different bits, it's a pretty standard procedure to do the scoring just so it has the well, in this case, the Kneadatite or green stuff has something to grab onto. So I've got my green stuff here, just a little bit of green stuff. I'm pretty sure how I started it off was I make sausages. So I've got this little bad boy. I'll stretch it out, make a little sausage, and I'll try to get it a relatively consistent thickness, because if you were to go to Google Images and you search up a brain, quite often there's not a lot of difference in the sizing of the wrinkles, the brain parts. So you want to have like a relatively consistent thickness. This is probably too consistent, but whatever. Anyway, so I have rather than using one big long sausage, I generally try and leave whatever excess green stuff here on my finger, because then I can hold my thumb down or my other finger down, and it sort of keeps it warm so it um, doesn't get too hard too quick and become a pain in the bum to work with. But yeah, so if I've got here, don't know if you can see it, but there's a line down here. Pardon my shaking hand, I don't know what's doing that. I've got this line down here. I'm going to use that as a reference for, say, this side here is the left hemisphere of a brain. This side is the right hemisphere of a brain. So I'm going to try and have like a line down the middle and make it relatively consistent, so that the goal ultimately isn't to get absolute correct anatomy, because that's kind of it's kind of not possible, considering there's just so much randomness in the structure of nature, which kind of also adds its consistency. But what I do is I make my initial placement, and then I'll use my tool to make the joining connections so that I've got a sturdy fixed position onto the surface. And then what I'll do is bend it around. It's a bit more difficult with the skinnier sausages, but I try to work it around like so. Try and give it a little bit of a squiggliness. I've got my water here, which is got it designated as my green stuff dipping. And what I'll do is I'll dip it, and then I'll shake off what excess there is, and it'll just sort of lubricate the tool so that rather than it sort of gripping on the viscosity of the Kneadatite, it'll just give you, so now there should be like a bit of a sheen. It lubricates it so you can glide over the surface rather than, say if I were to, rather than doing this, it would sort of grip, which can be problematic. Then we work this back up and try not to have, so this gap here for now is too big, even though there are still gaps in the brain matter and stuff like that. It doesn't, I guess, going for the illusion of brain matter, it seems like something a bit more closer to this is probably a bit more appropriate for the illusion. And so once I've sort of made that connection, in order to differentiate between the round look, which often might give you the look of intestines, where we make the connections and then we sort of gently flatten out the top, because at least when I've looked at photos of brains and stuff, it's kind of like this weird, has this weird appearance as if it's like, imagine you were to shove a bunch of sausages into a jar and then close the lid. It sort of has this illusion that there's this flatness over the top. And then with what I did on the tank was I added some little notches to kind of add a bit of that organic those organic sort of folds in the curves. So yeah, it's almost like, rather than, let's see if I can get, rather than going with a rounded surface, it's almost like you want to have the so you have your sausage, say you have your sausage, the initial shape, you want to sort of squish it down so then it's more of a kind of more akin to these sorts of shapes. So there's a level of flatness, but you don't want these corners to be too sharp, because it you don't really have edges in nature, and particularly with the brain matter, you don't have any sharp edges. There's a consistent sort of parabola shape to the sides of the the wrinkles. So you kind of want to keep it rounded whilst having it flat or flatter, so that you can sort of differentiate between, just going to make another sausage, so you can differentiate between the intestine look, which is kind of the what the rounded unflattened sort of sausages kind of have that look. Yeah, to differentiate between the intestine look and brain matter look, you have that sort of flattened you sort of flatten the crest, the very top, down, so that yeah, has that sort of sausage squished into the edges of a bottle sort of look. So yeah, this isn't exactly turning out super amazing, but I'm going over the process and the reasoning behind it. So we've got another sausage here. So rather than trying to put it all in at one point, I'll make a little anchor point. So I'll make my firm connection there, and then I will move it around and try to slowly, as it goes along, you're maneuvering and trying to get that sort of squiggliness, the appropriate squiggliness. And then once you've made your, like, that's pretty alright for what I'm going for. Remember, we're going for the illusion of brain matter. So there's going to be differences between what you see on your reference photos and what you're going to get in your sculpting, or at least when you're as much of a amateur at sculpting as I am, and I am. Like, there's some crazy sculptors out there, but yeah, when I'm trying to go for it, see, that doesn't quite look so good, so I'm going to try and work it around. So if I leave it like that, you can kind of get that sort of intestine look, that roundedness from about here around. Whereas if I were to establish foundations, then after establishing the foundations, I'll flatten out the top, sort of work it so it sort of smushes together in a way. It will take away that intestine sort of appearance and get into the more the effect that we're looking for. But at the same time, it's like, this is how I went about it. I've not exactly practiced this sort of thing. I'm just sort of trying to replicate the process that I went through when I did the sculpture. I'll try and get it quickly to show you the sculpture I'm referencing if you're not familiar with it. I have finished painting it. And I'll try and change what's going on with the camera. Hopefully this doesn't disrupt too much. So you can see how it's probably more visible on the other side. But if you were to compare this to a reference image, they're not the same. There's clear differences, but you have the illusion of brain matter. So for this, it's like one sausage started here, goes around down here, up around here, all the way down to there. Another, I think, is here, goes down around here, all around here to there. This starts there and it goes around down to there. And it's kind of like, if you take this one sausage, it's like you can draw an outline shape of its sector, so to speak. So from here, there's kind of like a line that goes across to here, up to here, across to there, and then back around down there. It's almost like I've got one jigsaw puzzle piece for this one sausage, another jigsaw puzzle for this one sausage, and then this one I think is quite thin. It goes around, down, and finishes up there. But up here, I think this one here, I think that, I'm not sure if, I can't tell where that starts and ends, but I think these might be two separate ones. This one might go down into here. But yeah, chatting with someone on Instagram, the way they attempted it was to use like essentially one super long sausage. And they had a lot of difficulties with that because, say, once you've gotten to the point where you've got from here all the way down to here established onto the structure, if you step back and look at it and it doesn't look right, you lift it up and there'll be stretching. This extra part will be in your fingers because you're trying to maneuver it. It's a bit more complicated because you're squeezing it and then your sausage gets out of shape and then you've got to play around with it, and yeah, it's just a pain in the bum. So if you limit it to multiple sausages, again, my attempt here, these sausages are probably a half too short, or maybe even they could be 2/3 longer. Yeah, they could probably be twice as long, or at least twice as long, and up to 2/3, or like 3 times as long. So then it's sort of like, so this kind of looks like it's two incomplete sectors, two incomplete puzzle pieces. Whereas over here, in relation to the thickness, actually, it's my camera work. Say with these, the ratio between the length of the sausage to the width of the sausage is much thinner, much longer sausage. And then you kind of work with that to try and give it the illusion that it's dense. And I think if this were like a genuinely naturally occurring creature, you probably wouldn't have the brain coming out from beyond these parts. But because I'm going for the illusion of mass, the illusion of density, I've made the outer edges come out, protrude from this other structure. And then this kind of looks like a scrotum, but it's supposed to be the cerebellum. But by the time I got to that and I was like, hang on, the brain has a cerebellum, I had done all this stuff, and then I only had this tiny little room left, so I was like, oh, okay, whatever, and just shoved that in there. You can also see that like there's not really any consistency in these sausages and in how they are played out, but in terms of the structure, they provide that illusion in that they are not rounded as in how you would typically think of an intestine, they have that flattened top surface as well as having that organic curve into the crevices, which is what is in keeping with the structure of the rest of the brain matter with the cerebrum. So yeah, see if I can get, if this will, how this will go. Let me see if you'll get a bit better color. Yeah. Yeah, I guess when you're placing it, you try to not get any fingerprints on it, but if you do, you can. I'll try and do it on my little example boy. Just 1 second. Yes. In my last video, I noticed that I was doing a lot of nose breathing. It's like a and yeah, I apologize if I'm still doing that sort of Huey's Cooking Adventures thing. If you know, you know. But yeah, if I make a fingerprint and then I do my dip once into my water and then flick off the excess, it'll give me, the water will provide a lubrication that is enough for me to smoothly go over the top without it gripping. So then I can re-establish and work that that smoothness back into it. Because the other thing about the brain matter is, like, it has the smoothness, the same smoothness as what you'd find with intestines, but it's just the flattening that that surface area down, maybe even pushing it a little bit around, so then that's the curves aren't so. Yeah, I might not have gone as much as flat as I could have. Yeah, see now this bit here, yeah, this bit here looks like it's much more dense and voluminous. I can't think of the word. There's more. It looks like there's more volume in there because you don't have these little gaps. It's almost like the little gaps sort of take away from the illusion of volume and brain mass. So if you're able to kind of work it in and give it a good squeeze in, and this is kind of like one of the cool things about nature, is you can sort of do what I'm doing now and have that curvature to this piece to sort of sculpt out that illusion. So yeah, try and do it again. Try and keep my hand out of the way. Yeah, being a bit more aggressive here in trying to squeeze up these sort of edges, but I don't exactly remember precisely what I did with the tank model, so I'm kind of, in doing this, I'm kind of learning and everything. So, but ultimately, hopefully, I have provided a foundation for you to take on and then work with and experiment with, and yeah, I mean, have a crack, work with it. There's no, like, if you're working with Nurgle in particular, it's kind of like there's a nice big margin for error, but yeah, I think one thing I've noticed with like trying to paint trees or drawing trees and stuff like that, in my head, my initial instinct is go like there's a specific structure. So then when I do the painting, the the tree just looks unnatural. It looks too mechanical because I'm trying to control its structure too much. So when in doing this, you don't want to over control how it goes. There's like you're trying to find a balance between complete randomness and the appropriate structure. So the appropriate structure has control needed for it to have that consistency, but also the natural element of it requires that you don't be too controlled. You need that randomness and that all that stuff. My brain is not working at the moment, but yeah, hopefully that is helpful and good. Yeah, happy bashing, happy sculpting. Have fun. A recording. Blah.